The Inflation Reduction Act is a piece of legislation that I'm very excited about. It got passed through the Senate, which I was thrilled about because it's going to easily pass the House, and then Biden will sign it into law. And so that means we're going to get a really, really good law pretty soon, which is exciting. I always give the caveat, it's not enough. It's not what this moment calls for, but it is really, really good. Something related to this that I don't think has gotten enough attention is the fact that Republicans forced a provision to get stripped out of the bill relating to capping insulin costs for Americans. And as I'm sure you guys are aware, the full bill got passed just on a 51 vote margin. So just the Democrats passed it, the 50 senators, and then Kamala Harris breaking the tie in the Senate. So it's just a Democratic supported bill as a whole. But this one provision relating to capping insulin costs required the support of more votes just based on its relevance to the budget, parliamentarian stuff. And so because that one provision needed 60 votes, they had to get Republicans on board, and they didn't get on board to cap insulin costs, which are getting insane for private insurance people. And specifically, this provision, almost identical for Medicare recipients, was allowed in the bill. So Medicare recipients are going to have these costs capped, but for people in the private market, they're not. And to me, this is just something in a good, healthy, democratic government that would be done with bipartisan support. Whenever you have this necessary drug that people are getting price gouged because it is necessary to a crazy extent, and we should be addressing that. But Republicans stood against it. So let's look a little bit here at Pramila Jayapal explaining the situation.
What happened on insulin? I can't get my head around what happened there. There was legislation that made a lot of sense to limit how much people pay for insulin, which is a very old drug upon which the patent has run out a long time ago. I don't understand that.
This is absolute heresy in my mind, because we had a provision, Democrats did, to cap the price of insulin at $35, not only for Medicare recipients, but for anyone on private insurance as well. That, of course, is a much, much larger group of people who would see the cost of insulin come down. And the Republicans refused to go along with the provision to extend that cap on insulin to a larger group of people. Now, of course, I should remind everyone that not a single Republican voted for any of this. Not a single Republican wants to cut healthcare costs for Americans or energy costs for Americans or take on climate change. This was passed on a Democratic-only vote, but it is particularly galling to see Republicans vote against. And I should say, I think there were 6 or 7 that voted with Democrats on this, but the vast majority of Republicans voted against capping the cost of insulin. That was just cruel, in my view, to all the people out there who are suffering with this high cost of insulin and price gouging.
And millions of people. It's one of the most common afflictions in the.
Wow. So a great provision stripped out because Republicans weren't willing to go on board. And again, that's something that needs to be focused on and shouted from the rooftops, because tons of conservatives are having to buy insulin and would experience the benefits of that provision. And people need to know that it was only supported by 7 Republicans. So we'll read a little further about this from the New York Times. Senate Republicans on Sunday forced the removal of a Democratic proposal that would have capped insulin prices at $35 for private insurers, even as 7 Republicans joined all 50 members of the Democratic caucus in an effort to preserve the provision in the climate tax and healthcare spending bill. Left untouched as of Sunday morning, however, was a separate proposal that caps insulin at $35 per month for Medicare patients. More than 3.3 million people on Medicare receive some common form of insulin. Wow. According to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. The cap for private insurers was widely viewed as a violation of the strict budgetary rules that govern the reconciliation process Democrats are using to fast-track the package and shield it from a Republican filibuster. Democrats intentionally did not drop the provision, daring Republicans to vote on the Senate floor to strip it out. So I think that was a great strategic move. Knowing that because it doesn't directly affect the budget in the way that the rest of the bill does, Republicans would have had to give their support to that particular provision for it to happen. Again, they had to make the decision to strip that provision out of the bill, and they made that decision besides 7 Republicans. The rest of the Senate Republican caucus did not want to help Americans in that way, and that's super disappointing. I think that needs to be focused on a lot more.